Hello, this lecture today is about apocalypticism and how it connects to the concept of violence. And let me start my lecture. Okay, so the end of day, in many end of day visions, there is an exception for a final battle between good and evil. And if you look at the picture in this slide, you see this is kind of like an imagined vision of the second coming of Christ. This is an example of the end times. Yes, the end time, and there is an expectation that when time will reach its end, there's going to be a big war. We call it the war of Armageddon, the war of Gog and Magog. There are all kinds of names to this war. And it's going to be basically a final war between good and evil. And this kind of thinking that time is reaching its end and there's going to be a big war coming between good and evil is called apocalypticism or apocalyptic. After that war would end, the world would change and a new world would establish with the victory of good over evil. And if you're familiar with the Christian, ideas about the end times, this is exactly what's going to happen. Yes, Jesus will come back, and he will reign from Jerusalem, and this will be a year, a time of great victory for good over evil, and basically a new era. So the thing is that if you really believe that the world is about to end and Jesus is coming, and time is going to end, and if this is something you really, really believe is going to happen, let's say tomorrow, in a few days, in a week, in a month, then it kind of creates an antisocial behavior from the believer. Yeah, why should you work? Why should you go to school? Why should you do the regular things? Well, everything is going to change. Everything is going to change. So it makes better sense to collect food, to get rid of property you don't need, to find a shelter. Maybe there will be atomic bombs coming. No, it makes better sense than to continue a regular life. And throughout history, throughout history, there have been multiple cases like this where um, people who really thought that the world is coming to an end acted in an antisocial way, really, did exactly what I just mentioned. And so the establishment of all world religions in Christianity, Judaism, Islam, basically they always say, don't think like that. Don't calculate the end. Don't behave like this. Don't think like that. They don't want to encourage this kind of a behavior because it leads to extreme behaviors. So this is the establishment. However, there are always people on the margins who say, listen, I am a prophet of God. God speaks to me, and God tells me what he wants me to do on his behalf. We call these kind of figures charismatic leadership, yes? They speak in behalf of God. Is it true or not? I leave you to judge. But these people, they absorb followers. And it can be only a small group of people. It don't need to be, a huge movement of these prophets, those charismatic leaders. And they tell them that if they want to survive the apocalyptic war, if they want to be, you know, if they want to be, saved, and to pass successfully that terrible war that is about to happen, they need to follow their instructions, no questions asked. So we typically call these movements sects. Nowadays, it's not so much of an appropriate term people use like sect. We call them new religious movements. And those figures tend to be drawn to violence. And I will give a few examples later. And why? Because they believe that they are already living in those like end days. It's not something for the future, it's something that is already happening in the present. And therefore, the rules of regular society do not apply to them, from one hand. And if people criticize them, yes, or if there are issues with law enforcement, it's very quickly spin out of control, and violence is being used in order to protect the community from outside attacks or things of that sort. And charismatic leaders need to justify their actions because they argue, they speak on behalf of God. So they say, listen, we know our Bible. Yeah, we know that before the end of times, there will be an attack on the true believers. And look, those FBI, those police, those who are coming after us, the media, it was all written in scriptures that this is going to happen like that. And therefore, we need to defend ourselves. So at the end of times, there is an opposition between the current days and the like end days, yes? So the end times are different from regular time, and the end is perfect while our current world is flawed. Yes, so we need to understand that time has like unique, has different phases in it. We are now living in regular time. In regular time, things happen, according to their natural development. But in the end of times, things will be different. And for those charismatic leaders and their followers, they tend to view anyone who is not following them as their enemy. Yes, it's either you are with us or you are against us. We call it dualism. It's either you're with us or you are against us. And since the belief is that the enemy is always trying to destroy the righteous, in many cases, there is a permission to act violently as an act of self-defense. This is how their logic works, those cults, those sects, we are being attacked. We need to defend ourselves against the enemy. And therefore, violence is being used in those cases. So, antinomic apocalypticism. So, there is a term in sociology which is called antinomic. And maybe I should explain what the word nomos. Nomos is law. So we live under the law, yes. There is a law. The law is applicable for all of us, and we all live under the law. And the law prohibits us from killing, from stealing, there are all kinds of laws that exist in our societies. But if you think that you are already living beyond normal times, you're like in messianic times, you may argue that those regular laws are not applicable for you. And this can lead into antisocial behavior. This is why sometimes in those cults and those sects, you see people deliberately breaking taboos. And where does it typically manifested? In sexual behavior. And we will think now of maybe a group, if you've heard of the Branch Davidians in Texas, 1992. It ended up with mass suicide. of a small group of people. I don't remember exactly how many, maybe 100, 200 people that lived in Texas in a small community and believed that their leader was the Messiah. Yeah. And they're living in messianic times. And he says, I'm the Messiah, so I need to sleep with all the girls. Yes. So this was part of the anti-Nomitic behavior that they typically behaved over there. So you see the sexual taboos being broken. Because these are different times, in regular times, you only have a wife to a spouse, yes. But in messianic times, all those things change. And also the communal suicide was explained in the same logic, yes. We need to die in order to transfer into the new phase, into messianic times. So we need to commit suicide so that we can usher the end times. So this is kind of an example of what I'm talking about. So those who follow apocalyptic messianism say, first, that the world is wicked, the laws of society are immoral and thus need to be ignored. Yeah. One should obey only the charismatic leadership of the sect. The current world has to be destroyed in order to build a new and perfect world instead. And redemption can only achieved in the new redeemed world. So this is the logic of apocalyptic thinking that leads into violence. So apocalyptic movement believe their role in history is to advance redemption with violence and religious confrontation. They justify violence on the non-believers because God wants them to act in violence, calls them to act in violence. They believe that their violence should redeem the world. What they do is not for their own sake. It's for everyone. Redemption is for everyone, not just for them. Just people don't understand it, but it's for them. It's for their own sake. And I gave an example here of a Amush Shinriko movement in Japan, where they put gas in the subway system in Tokyo in order to bring redemption, and hundreds of people died in an attack, terrorist attack like that, that took place in Japan in the 1990s. Other example like ISIS, like Branch Davidians, and others are examples of how those views are translated into dualistic, apocalyptic views. And if you think it's only for religious people, I gave you an example of someone who was not religious at all. His name was Adolf Hitler. He was the leader, the chancellor of the German Nazi Party and the head of the state, which started World War II. And he believed that everyone who was not German, Aryan, is wicked. And therefore he launched a big war against them. And the purpose of this war was to destroy the Jewish Christian morals that are ruining the world and need to be completely destroyed, also destroy the entire Jewish people at the same process. He said everyone had to obey only him, the Chancellor of Germany, Hitler, and the current world has to be destroyed in order to build a new and perfect world instead. Without the pollution of the Jews, the Jews are the problem. The Jews are the core of the issue, and Jews should be destroyed. And after the war, everyone will live perfectly under Germany. Yes, the war would end, the world will be redeemed, there will be no more Jews, there will be no more opposition. Everyone will be under the Nazi party, and then everyone would live in peace. Yes, so this will be redemption. A Reich of 1,000 years, this is how they call it. So just for you to see how religious ideas have kind of moved into other political ideas of the 20th century. So this is the end of my lecture, and I will stop the recording.